Welcome to Off the Record, a legal podcast.
Hello and welcome back to Off the Record with attorney Rhett Burney. Rhett is a family law and estate planning attorney with over 30 years of experience serving clients across South Carolina. My name is Kevin Rosenquist, and today we're talking about a topic that causes a lot of confusion: alimony. Who actually gets it? How is it calculated? How long does it last? Plenty of questions to be asked here. Rhett, good to see you again.
Good to see you, Kevin. How are you?
I'm good. So you ready to talk alimony?
Yeah, you're married. How's your marriage feeling these days?
It feels very, very good.
Okay, good. Yeah, start working on your marriage before you have to work on your marriage, because otherwise you may come to see me. We may be talking about the subject of alimony, no one's favorite subject.
Yeah, I'm sure you get a lot of people with real positive things to say about this topic in your office. So what is it? Like what, just to define it for anybody who is, not sure. I know there's different terms for it these days too. What is alimony? What is alimony, and what is it meant to do in South Carolina?
Those people who are paying alimony call it blood money.
Mm-hmm.
Those people who are receiving it, they say they deserve it. So depending upon whether you're the payor or the payee, it may be a good thing or a bad thing. But in essence, Kevin, alimony is designed to support the other spouse after a divorce. And spousal support is to help keep them in the same type of standard of living that they were enjoying during the marriage.
Is it just determined by whoever has more money pays the other one? Is it as simple as that?
No, it's very, very complicated, actually. So where I live in South Carolina, we have certain factors that the court has to consider. And so we don't have a calculator. You can't punch in a bunch of numbers and it spits out what your alimony payment will be. We take into account, or the judges take into account, factors such as how long have the parties been married? What is their educational level? What is the difference in incomes? Those types of things. What type of assets do they have? But I will tell you, one of the most important factors in alimony is who is your judge, because that is usually the deciding factor, because we just have some judges that are more pro-alimony and some that are more anti-alimony. But, before they start ordering alimony, they look at all the factors. And I think the most important factors to consider are how much each party's making, what's the difference in that, and how long have they been married? Because until you get over those types of thresholds, the other factors may not even matter.
We've talked about, there's obviously child support too. We all know what that is. Do children ever factor into alimony decisions, or they keep that completely separate?
No, they do. That's one of the factors, because when we start calculating child support, it takes into account how much money one party may be receiving or paying in alimony. Mm-hmm. So if you're the spouse that is receiving child support and receiving alimony, your child support will be lessened because of the alimony that you are receiving. In other words, if there were no children involved, you may get a higher amount of alimony just because you don't have to worry about the child support aspect of it.
You said, I'm curious, you said some judges are pro-alimony, some judges are anti-alimony. Why the disparity there?
I don't know, Kevin. Every judge has their likes and dislikes, their opinions. One thing as lawyers, we tell clients, the best thing you can do is never go in front of a judge, work out your differences prior to that, because judges are human and they just have different views upon things. They follow the law and they look at the facts. But when you have something like alimony, which the amount is discretionary with the court, if that judge just happens to think that this particular spouse, they don't like them or they don't need as much alimony as they're asking for, and they're the type of judge that doesn't award a lot of alimony, well, you may not get a lot. But we have others that tend to give a little bit more. So when we start as lawyers looking at who our case is going to be in front of, the first thing we look at is our judge, because we know what types of alimony awards these different judges are awarding. So that helps us tell our clients to get ready to write a big check, or, hey, we need to get this thing settled sooner rather than later.
Are there different types of alimony?
Yeah, there are. Several types. You have permanent periodic, which is the default alimony in the state that I have. You have rehabilitative alimony, and that's alimony to, let's say, a a spouse needed to go back to school, they may pay that money towards the spouse that needs schooling for a period of time to allow them to get through school, to rehabilitate them so they can start making a larger income. Then we have lump sum alimony. That's just, like I said, a lump sum. You write one check and you're done. Those are the main ones that we see. But the default is permanent and periodic, which in essence means forever until it changes. And it changes when one of the parties dies, the person receiving alimony gets remarried, or starts living with someone in a romantic relationship 90 days or more, or there's a substantial change of circumstances, such as retirement or disability, or they win the lottery or something like that.
And what kind of circumstances might alimony be denied?
Well, if you have an affair, you're not getting alimony. It doesn't matter how much.
Really?
Yeah, that's the big one. That's the big one. So yeah, if you have an adulterous relationship with someone and you get caught and you're asking for alimony, you will not get it. It is a bar in South Carolina. Adultery is a bar. So that's the biggest thing. We hire PIs all the time to prove that someone's having an affair, so one party doesn't have to pay alimony to the other. So that's the big one that we have.
Wow, that's interesting that they put something like that in the law. That's definitely interesting. So, all right, how is it calculated?
Great question. So there are various formulas, none of them which are mandated by the state. Every judge, several ways that can be calculated. The judge may just look at the difference in need. For instance, if the person making less money has a shortfall of, let's say, $1,000 a month, well, that may be the amount that they get in alimony. There's also another complicated formula that judges use, and they add the two incomes together, multiply it by a certain number, and then that's what they award in alimony. Some judges make up their own formulas. They'll give a certain amount for the number of years that the parties have been married. So there's no one way to do it. I mean, it would make it easier for lawyers and judges if there were a formula. But the problem I think our legislature has had in trying to decide about whether a formula is going to be made or not is every case is different. There's no cookie cutter case. So I think that's one of the reasons why they've had a hard time coming up with a formula to determine alimony. In child support cases, where I live in South Carolina, there is a mandated calculator. You punch in what each party makes in daycare and medical insurance, and it spits out a number which is mandated by law. It's easy, but alimony is not so easy because there's so many different factors involved.
Because there's so many different factors. Okay. So I mean, if the two people, let's say they have no kids, largely make the same pretty similar incomes, divide up the assets, is it fair to say that alimony won't be a part of that settlement?
I think that's a pretty safe bet.
And if before it even gets in front of a judge, the parties, can they agree to their own alimony terms where the judge doesn't have to get involved at all?
Yeah, absolutely. They can agree to just about everything they want to. Of course, you would present that to the judge, and the judge would approve it. Most of the time, a judge will. Now, if you come in there and one side's I'm making these numbers up, $1 million a year, and the other side's making zero, and they come in front of the judge and they say, we've agreed that this person is not going to receive any alimony, and they've been married for a substantial amount of time, the judge is going to probably ask a few questions as to why they've come up with that type of solution, because that just doesn't smell right? Mm-hmm. So a judge will look into those types of things and get to the bottom of it. He may find out after asking the proper questions that it's justified, or may not. It's just one of those things you don't know until you present it.
If you're the person who is paying the alimony, or is requested to pay or told to pay the alimony, I should say, and you really think it's like not a fair judgment based on everything, do you have the ability to appeal that decision?
Yeah, absolutely. Nobody likes the alimony that they're ordered to pay. Sometimes they hate it worse than other times. Yeah, if it doesn't make sense, then absolutely, judges do make mistakes. Maybe they looked at the numbers incorrectly, so that you always have that opportunity to appeal it and ask the court to reconsider what was happening.
Okay. And then if there's a big financial change in the person who's paying, they lose a job,
Yeah.
or on the other side, if they start making a ton more money for whatever reason, can the alimony shift one way or the other?
Yeah, usually, if you're under an order where it's permanent and periodic, then absolutely. Um, you know, but let's say you went through your divorce and it was finalized, and the court said, "Okay, sir, you're going to pay alimony, ma'am. You do not have to pay alimony." And then later on, circumstances change, and let's say the wife is now making 10 times more than the husband. He can't come back and ask for alimony from her. He can get his stopped, but he's not going to be allowed to ask for any alimony from her.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, so he can have it stopped, but he can't reverse and
That's right.
start getting paid. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. When it's modified, when it's terminated, how does that process work? Does it go to court? Is it just paperwork? How does that work?
Yeah, typically it's going to go to court because, as you can imagine, Kevin, when you go to someone and say, "Hey, can I stop paying you alimony?" What do you think they're going to say? No. So yeah, it will go to court. We have to show, we have to show substantial change. And I'll tell you, most of the time, the substantial change is usually one of several things. Either someone has lost a job through no fault of their own, or they've become disabled, they can't work anymore, or they've hit retirement age and they want to stop working. And it's usually one of those three that causes someone to come to us as attorneys and say, "Hey, I need to go back to court and have my alimony recalculated because I can't afford to pay what I was ordered to pay when I was healthy or when I was working." And so that's usually when we get involved, because the person who's been living off this alimony, they usually are not going to say, "Yeah, I'm going to be such a nice person and let you pay me less."
You mentioned remarriage or even cohabitation can affect the alimony payments. Obviously, the remarriage makes sense. You get remarried, you shouldn't, you shouldn't be getting money from your previous spouse anymore. But as far as the cohabitation, there's gray area there. No, I mean, sometimes people kind of live together, and I don't know. I think I could see that being a bit murky.
It's hard. It's really hard. So, because you've got to show 90 consecutive days or more. And I have had clients hire private investigators to watch their ex-spouse for 90 or more days so they can prove it. Because otherwise, what happens is if there's a substantial break in that time or you can't prove it, a judge may just throw you out of court and say you didn't meet your burden. So I've had several cases where my client, because of the amount of alimony that they were paying and how long they were going to have to be paying it, they hired private investigators to get involved to follow their ex-spouse to show, yeah, in fact, they were living with this person for the appropriate amount of time.
So even if they have their own residence, if you can prove that they were at this new person's residence living there for 90 days, you can potentially get alimony changed.
Yeah, you can. You just have to prove it. Of course, you can imagine we hear lots and lots of excuses as to why that person really wasn't there for 90 consecutive days. It's hard to prove. It really is. But, we've had cases where the facts, make it a little bit easier.
Yeah, for sure. Do you often find situations where you're hiring private investigators?
All the time.
Really?
Private investigators are great.
They're great. Are they like they are in the movies? Do they have dark offices and?
Absolutely. They're exactly like they are in the movies. They only meet with you at nighttime after hours.
They wear a little fedora type hat.
Little hats, all that good stuff.
Smoke too much, drink too much, the whole thing. Someone who might be concerned about alimony, like they might be concerned that they're going to have to pay. They don't think they have to pay, what have you. They want to talk to an attorney. What kind of steps should they take? What should they have prepared for someone like you to be able to say, yeah, you're going to have to pay alimony, or no, you won't?
Yeah. Are you asking for yourself, Kevin, or are you just?
No, I swear I'm not. I have a very healthy relationship with my wife.
No,
I invite her in, but I don't think she's home.
Good. We'll talk about it here in a little bit. So yeah, you'll come in, talk to us, and the main questions we will ask you, how long have you been married? What is the disparity of income? Tell us a little bit about your assets. Why do you want to get a divorce? Do you have a girlfriend lurking somewhere that may make a judge mad? It may make you pay alimony even though it's been a short-lived marriage. Those are the main things, because as soon as I know a marriage is usually 10 years or more, and then there's no law that says this, but that's usually considered a long-term marriage. that's when our ears perk up. So, this may be a potential alimony case. And then we couple that with the amount of money each party's making. If you have a stay-at-home mom or stay-at-home dad, and the other spouse is working, then that also causes us to think, we need to start worried about the potential of alimony in this case. And and then we go to the follow-up questions. Do you think your spouse is having an affair? Are they acting a little bit differently? You think they may have a boyfriend? Why are you coming to us for a divorce? Is it because you suspect some type of fault on the other side? Because at that point in time, then we'll say, before we file anything and alert the other side, let's go ahead and hire a private investigator just to see if there's something out there. Because if you can stop the alimony payments, private investigator's worth every penny.
Yeah, I would say so. Are there any specific misconceptions or misunderstandings that people have when they come into your office as it relates to alimony? That either about if they have to pay, how much they have to pay, or just kind of getting things wrong?
Yeah, there's bad information out on the internet.
No.
Just every now and then.
Okay.
Yeah. But no, the main thing is they think just because the other party makes more than they do that they're going to get alimony. Yeah. The other part is one side thinks, okay, because they have paid all the bills and they've done everything to help the family accumulate the assets, that is unfair for them now to have to pay money to the other side. The biggest misconception we have is because there's case law out there that says the purpose of alimony is supposed to keep the supported spouse at the same lifestyle they enjoyed while they were married. And so when people come in and say, hey, during the marriage, we were going to the country club and taking trips and doing all this stuff, and they want to keep that level. Well, the truth of the matter is when you go through a divorce, you double your expenses and you split your income. So financially, it is impossible for both sides to keep the same standard of living unless they just have lots and lots of money that money's no object. But for the most part, it's very difficult to keep someone at the same level that they were living at because they were sharing all the expenses, or you don't have two households right now. And we get into the lesser incomes, where you have a stay-at-home mother and the father is making an average income. There's not enough money to go around to keep that spouse at the same level that they were enjoying before the divorce. So that's probably the biggest misconception that we have is that, hey, I got to be kept up like I was during the marriage. Well, no, there's only so much that can go around. You can't get blood out of a turnip, right? You've heard that a million times. And a lot of times in the cases that we deal with, that is one of our biggest problems. And that's one of our biggest misconceptions that people come in with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can imagine for sure. All righty. Well, thanks for listening to today's episode of Off the Record. Whether you're negotiating alimony or trying to make sense of an existing order, it's important to understand your rights as well as your obligations. To get in touch with Rhett and his team, visit rhettburney.com, and don't forget to leave us a review. Subscribe. We very much appreciate it. Rhett, I always appreciate you. Thanks so much for your time.
All right, Kevin. Take care.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.